If you've never lived with your in-laws, let me paint you a picture. Imagine waking up early to make coffee and finding dirty dishes already piled in the sink from people who stayed up late snacking. Imagine finishing a full day of remote work, only to be told you sit around all day, so you should make dinner, clear the table, do everyone's laundry, vacuum, and watch someone else's grandchildren while the actual grandparents relax in front of the TV. Now imagine being told that all of this is just helping family. My name is Emily. I'm 27, I live in North Carolina, and my in-laws once proudly referred to me as their free live-in maid. They don't call me that anymore. Not since I sent them an itemized invoice for every hour of unpaid labor they squeezed out of me. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me start with how I ended up in their house in the first place. Before all of this, life was pretty simple. I worked from home as a graphic designer for a small marketing agency. My husband, Luke, was a technician for a telecom company. Steady job, decent benefits, not glamorous but reliable. We rented a one-bedroom apartment in Raleigh that we loved. It was small but ours. I had my little corner desk by the window, Luke had his video game set up in the living room. And we had enough money for takeout on Fridays and occasional weekend trips to the beach. Then the layoffs hit. Luke's company got bought out by a bigger one. They promised, nothing will change, which in corporate speak, means start polishing your resume. He was let go with 3 weeks severance and a "we wish you the best on your journey" email. We had some savings, but between my modest salary, health insurance, and our student loans, we were suddenly very aware of every dollar. We cut back on extras. We canceled subscriptions. Luke spent his days job hunting and doing odd gigs through apps. For a while, it was stressful but manageable. Then our landlord announced he was selling the building. We had 60 days to move. Rents in our area had jumped in the last few years. Everything within commuting distance cost at least $500 more a month than we were paying. One night, surrounded by rental listings and half-eaten microwave dinners, Luke sighed. "I could call my parents," he said. "They've got the space. We could stay there a few months, save on rent until I find something solid." My stomach clenched. His parents, Barbara and Ron, lived about 40 minutes away, in a 4-bedroom house in the suburbs. They were the kind of people who had matching holiday pajamas and a sign over the kitchen that said "family is everything." On the surface, they were friendly. But there were. The first time I met them, Barbara had asked, "So, when you have kids, will you keep working on the computer, or will you be a real mom?" Ron loved to tell stories that ended with, "Back in my day, women didn't expect their husbands to help with the dishes." It was old school, bordering on controlling. Still, they'd always been mostly polite to me. I shrugged it off as a generation gap. The idea of moving in with them felt like voluntarily stepping into a 1950s sitcom but with Wi-Fi. "I don't know," I said carefully. "Would they even want that? They've offered before," Luke said. "Back when we got married, remember? If you ever need a roof over your head, our doors are open." He mimicked his mom's sing-song voice. "And if it's just for a few months, it could really help. We'd save almost everything I make once I get a job." I thought of our dwindling savings, of the rising rent prices, of the fact that my job, while stable, didn't pay enough to comfortably float us long-term in this market. "Okay," I said finally. "Maybe we talk to them, just to see." "Just 6 months," he promised. Barbara answered our video call with her usual enthusiasm. "Hi, sweeties," she said, adjusting the tablet so we could see the kitchen behind her. "To what do I owe this pleasure?" Luke explained about the landlord, the rent, the layoff. "Oh honey, why didn't you call sooner?" she said. "Of course you can stay here. We've got the guest room just sitting there. You know we'd never let you struggle when we have space." Ron chimed in from somewhere off-screen. "Family helps family. We're not going to let our son and daughter-in-law end up in some shoebox." I glanced at Luke. 6 months, I told myself. 6 months of mild annoyance in exchange for financial breathing room. "Thank you," I said. "We really appreciate it." Barbara clapped her hands. We'll be like one big happy family, she said. It'll be fun. She sounded like she believed it. I wish I'd recorded that call just so I could play it back for myself later, when fun started to look a lot like full-time unpaid domestic labor. We moved in on a humid Saturday in June. Barbara and Ron had cleared out their guest room and half the closet. Luke's younger sister, Haley, who was 22 and still living at home while she did community college, helped us carry boxes. "Don't worry, it'll be nice having another girl around here," Haley said. "Mom won't be able to gang up on me alone anymore." I laughed, thinking she was joking. The first few days were fine. Barbara fussed over us, making big breakfasts and asking a million questions about my job. "So you just sit on the computer and people pay you?" Ron gave Luke tips about interview posture and which tie makes you look like a leader. On the third day, Barbara knocked on our door just as I was logging in for work. "Hey, sweetie," she said. "Since you're home today, could you keep an eye on the laundry? I've got some errands to run." "Sure," I said. "Just let me know when you start a load." She smiled wide. "You're a doll," she said. "I knew having you here would be a blessing." It felt harmless. Then came the dishes. The next morning, the sink was overflowing with plates from Ron's late-night snack and Haley's 2 a.m. mac and cheese. Barbara walked in, saw them and turned to me. "Emily, honey, could you take care of those?" she asked. "I need to run out to the store before it gets hot." I glanced at the clock on the stove. 8:42 a.m. I actually have a meeting at 9, I said. "But I can get them after?" Her eyebrows lifted, just slightly. "You work from home," she said. "You can do dishes between things." I always did. When Luke and Haley were little, I never just sat at a desk all day. There was an edge under the sweetness. Guilt prickled. "Okay," I said. "I'll do them." It became a pattern. At first it was, "Since you're home, can you start dinner?" Then it was, "You're so much better at folding than Ron." Then Haley, "Studying, can you vacuum real quick?" It happened in little steps, the way most bad habits do. Barbara's compliments turned into expectations. "You make such good meals, Emily," she'd say. "We eat so much healthier now that you're here." "You're such a lifesaver with the laundry," she'd add. "My back just can't handle bending over the washer anymore." Within 2 weeks, I was doing grocery runs, writing the meal plan on the fridge, scrubbing bathrooms, wiping down counters, and washing everyone's clothes. On top of my full-time job. At first, I told myself it was an even trade. We weren't paying rent. The least I could do was contribute. But there was a difference between contributing and being assigned. And the line started to blur. The thing about remote work is that to everyone who doesn't do it, it looks like nothing. I'd be on a Zoom call, presenting a design concept, while Barbara wandered through the background humming, "Don't mind me, I'm just tidying." She'd stand at my door, whisper shouting, "Do you want grilled cheese for lunch or should I defrost chicken?" while my boss was explaining our new client's brand guidelines. I tried to set boundaries. "Hey, I have meetings from 9 to 3 today," I told her one Monday. "Can I help with stuff afterward?" She smiled tightly. "I'm not asking you to do things," she said. "I just thought you'd want to help. You know, to say thank you for us giving you a place to stay." The word giving stung. We weren't guests in a vacation home. We were adults trying to stabilize our lives. When I brought it up to Luke, he sighed. "Babe, you know my mom," he said. "She shows love through chores. This is just how she is. It's only for a few months. Let's not make waves. It's not just chores," I said. "It's everything. I'm cooking, cleaning, handling laundry, watching your niece on Saturdays, all while working my job. I don't mind helping, but I feel like staff." "You're overthinking it," he said, kissing my forehead. "You're really good at this stuff. She trusts you. That's a compliment." Funny how compliments can feel like handcuffs. The first time Barbara introduced me as her little maid, I thought she was joking. We were hosting Sunday dinner for the extended family, apparently a regular thing at the Walker house. I spent the entire weekend prepping. Barbara handed me a sticky note list: marinate chicken, make 3 side dishes, bake a dessert, clean the guest bathroom, set the table with the nice plates. By the time her sister and brother-in-law arrived, I'd been on my feet for 6 hours. When Aunt Lisa walked in and complimented the smell, Barbara laughed. "That's thanks to Emily," she said. "Since Luke lost his job, we traded rent for a live-in maid." Everyone chuckled. I forced a smile. Aunt Lisa patted my arm. "Oh, well, it's good practice for when you have kids," she said. The words lodged in my throat like a stone. After everyone left, I collapsed on the couch. Luke sat down next to me, rubbing my shoulders. "You were amazing," he said. "Everyone loved the food." "They loved the idea of me being your parents' maid," I said flatly. He winced. "Yeah, that joke was a bit much," he admitted. "I'll talk to Mom." He did. She cried. "I was just teasing," she sobbed. "I thought we had that kind of relationship. I didn't mean to hurt her feelings. After everything I do for you kids, now I'm being called a bully." Luke rushed to comfort her. I ended up apologizing for misunderstanding. Somehow, I was the one making waves again. Things escalated slowly, then all at once. Barbara started dropping off Ron's work shirts in our room with a cheery, "Could you iron these? You're so much better at it." Haley left her laundry basket in the hallway with a text, "Mom says, can you throw mine in when you do yours?" Ron started calling out from the living room, "Hey, Em, can you grab me a soda while you're in the kitchen?" Even when I wasn't anywhere near the kitchen. One Saturday, Barbara announced that her friend Karen's grandkids were coming over and asked if I could keep an eye on them while she and Karen caught up. Just for a little bit, she promised. 4 hours later, I was sitting on the floor of the den covered in glitter and goldfish crumbs, while 4 children under 8 screamed at each other over a video game. Barbara and Karen sipped wine on the patio. Luke was out helping his dad in the garage, assembling shelves. When I mentioned it to him later, he said, "You're so great with kids. They probably just assumed you wouldn't mind. You can always say no, you know." Every time I tried to say no, it turned into a drama. "If you don't want to be part of this family, just say so," Barbara would sniff. "We've opened our home, and you can't even help with a few small things," Ron would grumble. "You're making my parents feel unappreciated," Luke would say quietly. So I stopped saying anything. On the outside. Inside, resentment simmered. The message that changed everything came on a random Tuesday night in August. I was lying in bed half asleep when my phone buzzed. It was a text from Barbara. "Since you're staying here rent-free, you'll handle all the cooking and amp cleaning, right? Saves us hiring a housekeeper." Again, smiling face with smiling eyes. I stared at it, my heart pounding. It wasn't a joke. It was policy. Before Luke lost his job, they'd had a cleaning service twice a month. Barbara had told me once, in a conspiratorial whisper, "Don't tell Ron, but that's my little luxury." Now, apparently, I was the cleaning service. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. I wanted to write, "No, that's not what we agreed." Or, "My labor isn't free just because I'm family." Instead, I typed, "We can talk about it tomorrow." Then I forwarded the screenshot to my best friend, Jenna. Jenna and I went to college together. She worked as a project manager for a construction firm and had a deeply practical approach to nonsense. Her reply came within seconds. "Oh hell no." Then, start tracking. Every hour. Every task. Trust me, I frowned. Tracking? For what? Because if they want to treat you like paid help, you should at least know what the bill would be. You're a designer. Make it pretty. That last line made me laugh through my frustration. But the idea lodged in my brain. What would the bill look like? The next morning, I opened a new spreadsheet and titled it, Walker Household Domestic Labor Log. In the first row, I made columns, date, task, hours spent, equivalent role, housekeeper/cook/nanny/event planner. Under that, I added a separate table, local rates, with numbers I'd pulled from Google for housekeepers, babysitters, and personal chefs in our area. Then I started filling it in. 8/12 grocery shopping plus meal prep for week 3 hours cook/household manager 8/13 laundry, sort, wash, fold. For household 2.5 hours housekeeper 8/14 watch niece plus neighbor's kid 4 hours nanny. I went back through my calendar and texts, retroactively filling in big chunks of time I could remember from the previous 2 months. It wasn't perfect, but it painted a picture. In an average week, I was spending 30 hours on household chores and childcare, on top of my 40-hour job. At local rates $22 an hour for house cleaning, $25 for childcare, $27 for in-home meal prep. That added up fast. After a month, the total value cell at the bottom of my spreadsheet read $3,390. I stared at it, lightheaded. $3,390. In 1 month. I'd been doing that for free. No wonder I was exhausted. I showed Luke the spreadsheet one night when he came home from a late gig installing routers. He scrolled through it, his brow furrowing. "Wow," he said softly. "You've really been doing a lot." "Yeah," I said. My voice shook. "This is what your mom expects when she says since you're here rent-free, you'll handle all the cooking and cleaning. This is the job she assigned me." He rubbed the back of his neck. "I mean, rent in this area is more than $3,000, he said. "It kind of balances out, doesn't it?" Anger flared. "Rent for a 1-bedroom, I said. Not for a 5-bedroom house with a den, a yard, and a 2-car garage. We're not using most of this space. And what about my job? I bring in money too. Why is my free time automatically theirs?" He opened his mouth, then closed it. "I'm not saying it's fair," he said. "I'm just saying, they're helping us. They'd never charge us rent. They just expect help around the house in return." "Help," I repeated. "Or full-time cleaning, cooking, and childcare?" He didn't answer. We went to bed without resolving anything. I lay awake, listening to the hum of the ceiling fan and the faint sound of Barbara's TV through the wall. If Luke couldn't or wouldn't stand up for me, I'd have to stand up for myself. I didn't know exactly what that would look like yet, but the spreadsheet was a start. The final straw came on Labor Day weekend. Barbara decided to throw a big barbecue for the whole extended family plus some church friends. By Barbara decided, I mean, she announced it at breakfast, then handed me a legal pad. "Can you write down what we need?" she asked. "You're so organized. We'll do burgers, hot dogs, ribs, 3 salads, deviled eggs, a dessert table." The list spooled out until it looked like we were catering a wedding. "Who's helping?" I asked. "Oh, everyone will pitch in," she said breezily. "Haley can pick up ice and buns. You and I will handle the cooking. Ron and Luke will man the grill." "Okay," I said slowly. "But I have a deadline Friday." "I can't spend the whole week. You work from home," she said, that familiar edge creeping in. "You can stir a bowl of potato salad between emails. Don't be dramatic." By Friday night, I'd gone through 2 bags of potatoes, 3 dozen eggs, 4 racks of ribs, and every mixing bowl in the house. Barbara tasted everything, adding more salt or more mayo and occasionally clucking, "Next time, use a bit more paprika." On Saturday, 25 people crammed into the backyard. Ron held court by the grill. Luke ran errands back and forth. Haley disappeared with her friends after dropping off the ice. I spent the whole afternoon in a sweaty blur, carrying trays, refilling drinks, clearing plates, taking out trash, loading the dishwasher. At one point, I caught my reflection in the sliding glass door. My hair was frizzy, my t-shirt had a grease stain, and my face was flushed tomato red. Barbara, meanwhile, perched at the picnic table under an umbrella, fanning herself and accepting compliments. "You've outdone yourself, Barb," one of her church friends said, popping a deviled egg into her mouth. "This is amazing." Barbara smiled modestly. "Well, you know me," she said. "I just love taking care of my family." I stood there with a stack of dirty plates in my arms, sweat running down my back, and felt something inside me snap. Later, while I was scrubbing barbecue sauce off a casserole dish at 10 p.m., my niece, 8 years old and painfully honest, wandered into the kitchen. "Aunt Emily, how come Grandma never helps with dishes?" she asked. I blinked. "She does sometimes," I said carefully. "My mom says when she was our age, Grandma made her do all the work," my niece said. "She said that's what daughters are for." She shrugged and skipped away. I stared at the bubbles in the sink. I was not going to be another of Barbara's daughters. I was a grown woman with a job and a spine. And I had a very clear record of exactly how much my time was worth. The next day, while everyone napped off their food comas, I opened my laptop and a blank design file. At the top, in tasteful serif font, I typed, "Invoice" underneath, from Emily Carter, household manager and AMP domestic services provider, to Ron and AMP Barbara Walker, household for domestic services rendered June 5 to September 5. Then came the line items, pulled directly from my spreadsheet. Weekly meal planning and AMP grocery shopping, 13 weeks times 3 hours / week times 22 / HR equals $858 daily cooking. Breakfast and AMP dinner, 13 weeks times 10 hours / week times 22 / HR equals $2,860. Household cleaning, bathrooms, floors, common areas, 13 weeks times 8 hours / week times 22 / HR equals $2,288. Laundry toss for 4 adults, 13 weeks times 6 hours / week times $22 / HR equals $1,716. Child care, niece, neighbor kids, church friends kids, 60 hours times $25 / HR equals $1,500. Event planning and AMP execution, 40 hours times $7 / HR equals $1,080. Subtotal, $10,302. Then, in smaller type, note: rates based on average local market rates for housekeeping, in-home meal prep, event coordination, and childcare in Wake County, NC. Underneath, I added, family discount, 20%. $1,060. Top 40 adjusted total, $8,241.60. Then, because I'm petty when pushed, I added, payment terms, net 30 days, late fee of 10% monthly on unpaid balance. I sat back and looked at the number. $8,241.60. And that was with a family discount. My hands shook as I saved it as a PDF. Then I wrote a cover letter. Barbara and Ron, when we moved in, the understanding was that we would stay temporarily while Luke looked for work, and that I would help out around the house as part of being family. Over the past 3 months, the scope of that help has grown into what is essentially a full-time domestic position: cooking, cleaning, laundry, childcare, and event planning, often in addition to my own full-time job. In your text on August 11, Barbara, you wrote, "Since you're staying here rent-free, you'll handle all the cooking and AMP cleaning, right? Saves us hiring a housekeeper again." In other words, my unpaid labor has replaced work you previously compensated a professional for. I am not comfortable continuing to perform these duties without clear boundaries or acknowledgement of their value. As such, I've attached an invoice representing the fair market value of the services I've provided from June 5 to September 5. Going forward, I see 3 options. We treat this as a formal employment arrangement, with a written agreement on duties, hours, and pay. We divide household chores fairly among all adults, and you rehire paid help for any remaining needs. Luke and I find our own place and move out by October 1. I'm open to discussing what feels fair to everyone. What I'm not willing to do is continue in the current situation where my time and labor are treated as free and expected. Emily Wise stunned letter and slipped them into plain white envelopes. On the front of each, I wrote their names in neat calligraphy: Barbara, Ron, and Luke. Then I went to bed. The next morning was Sunday. Barbara loved her Sunday mornings, big breakfast, church, then lazy afternoons. I woke up early, heart pounding. I placed the envelopes at each of their spots at the kitchen table. Then I made coffee and tried not to throw up. Barbara was the first one in. She hummed as she poured herself a cup, then noticed the envelopes. "What's this?" she asked, picking up the one with her name. "Something I'd like you all to read," I said. "Then we can talk." She slid her finger under the flap and pulled out the letter and invoice. For a second, her face was blank. Then the color rose from her neck to her cheeks. "Is this a joke?" she demanded. Ron shuffled in, rubbing his eyes. "What's going on?" he asked. "Your daughter-in-law sent us a bill," Barbara snapped, shoving the papers at him. He adjusted his glasses, reading. His eyebrows shot up. $8,000, he said. "What in the world, Emily?" Luke came in last, hair messy, grabbing his envelope. He read faster than either of them. His eyes flicked from the page to my face, then back. I held up a hand. "Can we sit?" I asked, my voice surprisingly steady. "All of us?" We sat. Barbara slapped the invoice on the table. "I cannot believe this," she said. "After everything we've done for you, we opened our home, we feed you, we give you a room, and you turn around and treat us like clients? You've been treating me like an employee," I said softly. "An unpaid one." Ron snorted. "That's called family, Emily. When I was your age, if my parents needed help, I did it. No one sent anyone an invoice when you were my age," I said. "Were you working full-time while also running an entire household that wasn't yours, without any say in how things were done or appreciation for it?" He frowned. "Your job is on a computer. It's not like you're working in a factory." I swallowed. "This isn't about whose job is harder," I said. "It's about the fact that my time has value. You know that, because before we moved in, you paid someone to clean. You paid for catering sometimes. Now you don't because I do it." Barbara slammed her hand on the table. "We're not paying you to live in our house," she said. "That's insane." "I'm not asking you to," I said. "I'm showing you what you've been taking for granted. And I'm saying I won't keep doing it under these conditions." Luke finally spoke. "Mom, Dad," he said slowly, "Emily's been doing a lot, more than I realized, honestly. Maybe we should stay out of this," Barbara snapped. "This is between me and her. I raised you. I changed your diapers. I didn't send you an invoice for my time. You also chose to have kids," I said quietly. "I didn't choose to be your maid." Her eyes flashed. "I never called you a maid," she said. "You called me your free live-in maid at Sunday dinner," I said. "In front of your friends." "That was a joke," she said. "It didn't feel like one," I replied. Ron leaned forward, jabbing a finger at the invoice. "So what is this then?" he demanded. "Blackmail? You going to take us to small claims court if we don't pay your little bill?" I took a breath. "No," I said. "I'm not taking you to court. The invoice is symbolic and practical. It's a way of saying, this is what my time would cost someone else. Here are the options. If you want this level of help, it needs to be treated like real work with either pay or clear, limited expectations. If you don't, that's fine. Then we drop it and Luke and I move out by October 1st. Barbara stared at Luke. "You're okay with this?" she asked, her voice trembling. He swallowed. "I think we've been taking Emily for granted," he said, choosing his words carefully. "She works full-time. I should have done more. We should have done more. If she wants to leave, I'll go with her." The hurt on Barbara's face stung even me. "So you're abandoning your family for some spreadsheet?" she whispered. "I'm not abandoning anyone," he said. "I'm choosing my wife, like I promised I would." She put a hand to her chest. "I can't believe this," she said. "After all we've sacrificed. We never charged you rent." You did," I said gently. "You just charged it in labor instead of money. I paid in hours instead of dollars." Ron shook his head. "You young people," he muttered. "Everything has to be transactional. No sense of duty." "I have a sense of duty," I said. "To myself. To my marriage. To not burning out because I'm afraid to upset you." Silence settled over the table. Finally, Barbara picked up the invoice again and waved it. "So what, you expect us to cut you a check for $8,000? she asked. I met her eye. "I don't think that will happen," I said. "And honestly, I don't expect it. If you decide you want to contribute something toward our moving costs or savings as a gesture, that's your choice. What I do expect is respect for my time going forward. Which in this house means a plan by the end of the week about chores, or it means we find another place. Ron scoffed. And where are you going to go? He said. Back to that cramped little apartment? You can't afford this area now. I shrugged. Then maybe we move farther out, I said. Or to a smaller place. We figure it out. I'd rather struggle in a studio than feel like an unpaid employee in a house where people think my worth is in how many dishes I wash. Luke put his hand over mine. I'll call a realtor friend, he said. See what's out there. Barbara's eyes filled with tears. You're really doing this, she said. Yes, I said softly. I really am. You'd think that would be the end of it. You'd be wrong. Because if there's one thing my mother-in-law hated, it was other people thinking she wasn't a perfect hostess and mother. That afternoon she called an emergency family meeting and invited Luke's older brother, Jason, and his wife Megan, over to talk sense into us. I didn't know that part until they pulled into the driveway with their 2 kids. Jason raised his hands as soon as he walked in. Okay, what's this about Mom getting an invoice? He said. Are we charging family now? Barbara launched into her version of events. She sent us a bill for doing chores, she wailed. $8,000, like we're her employers. Can you imagine? Jason looked at me, smirking, clearly expecting me to be embarrassed. Instead, I went and grabbed an extra copy of the invoice from my room and handed it to him. Here, I said calmly. This is what I've been doing since we moved in. And this I tapped Barbara's text printed at the backies where your mom said I'd be taking over for the housekeeper to save money. Megan leaned over Jason's shoulder to read. Her eyes widened. Wow, she said softly. That's... Jason frowned as he scanned the list. Okay, but they're letting you live here for free, he said. That's worth something. So is my time, I said. I'm not saying they owe me every dollar on that page. I'm saying they've been benefiting from my work in a way that's not sustainable or fair. I needed a way to show what that actually looks like. Megan cleared her throat. To be honest, she said, if Mom had sent me that text about no need to hire a housekeeper again, I'd be pretty upset too. Barbara turned on her. Oh, so now you're against me too? She snapped. After everything I did for you when the kids were babies? Megan's expression hardened. You also treated me like a free nanny when we lived here for 3 months after Jason lost his job, she said. You just didn't get an invoice. The room went very quiet. I looked at Megan, surprised. She shrugged. I didn't have Emily's spreadsheet skills, she said. But I remember how it felt. Barbara's mouth opened and closed. I was just, she began. Helping, Megan finished. Yeah, I know. But there's a difference between helping and being expected to handle everything because you're the daughter-in-law. Ron threw up his hands. I can't believe this, he muttered. My own kids ganging up on us. Jason sighed. Dad, come on, he said. Mom does a lot, but so does Emily. So did Megan. Maybe we all need to reset expectations here. The argument went in circles for another hour. In the end, nothing was really resolved. But a seed was planted. For the first time, Barbara and Ron were getting pushback not just from me, the outsider, but from their own children. That night, Luke and I sat on the bed with rental listings pulled up on my laptop. Are you sure? He asked. It'll be tight on just your income until I get something stable. I'm sure, I said. We'll make it work. He took a deep breath. I'm sorry, he said. For not seeing it sooner. For letting it get this bad. Mom kept saying you were so helpful, and I just didn't question it. I know, I said. You grew up in it. It's harder to see when you're inside the system. We found a small 2-bedroom apartment 20 minutes outside the city that was just barely within reach if we were careful. It had ugly carpet and outdated cabinets. But it would be ours. We signed the lease 2 days later. When we told Barbara and Ron we'd officially found a place and set a move-out date for the end of the month, Barbara gave me the cold shoulder for 3 days straight. She banged pots in the kitchen. She huffed when she walked past our room. But she didn't ask me to do chores. The silence was almost louder than the nagging had been. Then, a week before we were scheduled to leave, something unexpected happened. Barbara knocked on our door. Her eyes were red. "Can we talk?" she asked. Luke and I sat on the edge of the bed while she perched on the desk chair. She twisted a tissue in her hands. "I've been thinking," she said. "About everything. The invoice, what Megan said, what you said, Emily." I braced myself. "I still think sending a bill was a lot," she said. "But I can't pretend I didn't see the spreadsheet. You have been doing a ton. More than I wanted to admit. And I know I lean on the women in this family." Understatement of the year. "I grew up with a mom who worked 2 jobs and still made dinner every night," she said. "She never complained. I thought that's just how it was. When you moved in, it felt natural to let you take over things I was tired of doing. I told myself you liked it, because you're good at it, that you were just helping." She looked up, eyes shiny. "That was wrong," she said simply. I swallowed hard. "I appreciate you saying that," I said. She sniffled. "Your invoice hit me in the face with reality," she said. "I actually called the cleaning service we used to have to ask their rates. Your numbers were pretty much spot on." A small, bitter part of me felt vindicated. "I don't want you to feel used," she continued. "And I don't want Luke to feel like he has to choose between us. So, we want to help you with the move." She reached into her purse and pulled out a folded check. My heart hammered. I didn't want to look greedy, but I also didn't want to do the obligatory "oh my gosh, you shouldn't have" dance. "What is it?" I asked. $2,000, she said. "Call it partial payment. For everything you've done. Use it for your deposit or furniture or whatever. It's not the full invoice, I know. But it's us saying we see you, and we're sorry." My throat tightened. "Thank you," I said softly. "That means a lot." Luke squeezed my hand. Barbara sighed. "I can't promise I'll suddenly be perfect about all this," she said. "I've been me for 58 years, but I'm going to try. And next time we host a big family thing, I'll be the one doing most of the work, or I'll hire help, not you." I nodded. "That sounds fair," I said. As she left, she paused at the door. "For what it's worth," she said, "your invoice made me look at my own marriage, too. I realized I've been doing unpaid work for decades and just accepting it. Maybe I should send your father-in-law a bill." She laughed weakly. We all did. It was the first time in months our laughter had felt genuine. We moved into the new apartment on a crisp October morning. It was smaller and older than our last place, but when I set my favorite mug on the counter and realized no one was going to tell me where to put it, I felt 10 pounds lighter. Luke found a new job a month later, at a different telecom company that seemed more stable. We set up a shared chores chart on the fridge, not because we were keeping score, but because we wanted to make sure we never fell into the pattern his parents had modeled. "I'll take bathrooms if you take floors," Luke said. "And we can alternate cooking." "Deal," I said. Sometimes when I'm scrubbing a pan, I think about those 3 months at his parents' house. The exhaustion. The resentment. The way I'd started to believe my only worth there was in how shiny I could make their countertops. Then I remember the feeling of sliding that invoice across the table. Of choosing discomfort over slow self-erasure. Of watching my husband say, "I choose my wife." We still visit Barbara and Ron. Not every week, but for holidays and birthdays. I notice now that Barbara makes a point of sitting me down when I arrive. "Don't you dare start cleaning," she'll say, wagging a finger. "You're a guest." She even rehired the cleaning service. Once, I overheard her on the phone with a friend. "No, I don't ask Emily to help with that stuff anymore," she said. She's got her own job. I learned my lesson. I smiled into my coffee. My in-laws treated me like a maid. So I sent a bill. I didn't do it to be petty though. I'll admit, there was some satisfaction in watching their faces when they saw the total. I did it because sometimes people don't understand the value of what you do until you put a number on it. Sometimes, the only way to get people to respect your time is to show them the receipt. And if anyone ever tries to tell me again that remote work isn't real work, or that chores done by women are just helping, I have a spreadsheet and an invoice template ready to go.